think today is probably going to trigger you, but in the most beautiful way possible.
The way that I define codependency is when you place your worth or your good feelings about yourself on someone or something outside of you. Society has literally primed us to be codependent.
Yeah.
Your grades told you how smart you were. The amount of money in your bank account told you how successful you are.
As soon as you said that, my brain was going to family approval and like relationships with parents, your entire identity being wrapped up into a partner. And even for entrepreneurs, clients, client approval, client satisfaction.
We go in and say, no, I don't need the acknowledgement. That is only invalidating this part of you that does hold the core belief that you do need that validation.
Without these people or things or jobs or distractions, frankly, I didn't even know what to do with myself.
Whatever you don't look at, whatever remains unconscious will silently run your life. So stay curious, stay willing to see the scary, messy part, and stay compassionate and hold yourself in grace.
Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. We are talking with an incredible guest today. I could not be more excited for you to dive into today's episode because honestly, I think today is probably going to trigger you, but in the most beautiful way possible. And while I know that that probably sounds dramatic, this conversation is going to hold a mirror up for you. It's going to help you to really have an awareness and look at parts of your life and the relationships within it in a very critical way. It may just be the thing that you need to hear for some of the relationships, friendships, and maybe even business relationships that you have in front of you right now. So, I want to talk a little bit today about our incredible guest, Alyssa Zander. Alyssa Zander is completely redefining what exactly codependency actually means. She is a codependency expert. She's a host of a top 100 relationship podcast called The Codependency Alchemy, and she's an author who helps people break free from patterns that keep them stuck in exhausting cycles of people pleasing and external validation. But she's most powerful in her work because she connects codependency to the mother wound that shows us that this isn't just really a relationship about addiction, but it's actually about placing your worth and your value in someone else or something else outside of yourself. So we talk so much about so many incredible things today. Why codependency isn't actually about having an addictive relationship, but it's about when you place your worth in something outside of yourself. She will talk about the vessel analogy that will completely change how you see your relationships and why you never feel full enough from your partner's love and how unconsciously you're critiquing every gesture to keep a dopamine cycle going. How to identify codependent patterns in your business through resentment, boundary issues, and the exhausting need to answer client messages within 5 seconds. And also, spoiler, you may be the reason that you're limiting their growth. She'll also explain her shadow work framework that traces your triggers back to core wounds of abandonment, rejection, and betrayal, and why she says whatever you don't look at will silently run your life. She also unpacks the pattern tracking method using physical sensations to help you to understand boundaries in real time, especially within family dynamics, and why saying, I just want him to know instead of directly asking for what you need in your relationship is actually avoiding responsibility and keeping you stuck in mind reading expectations. It's one of those episodes where you feel like you're going to get called out, but you get a new way of living, but you get a whole other dose of love and validation you needed all wrapped in one. This completely rewrote my beliefs around codependency and what it means, what it looks like in life, in business, romantic relationships, family relationships. There's so much in today's episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty, you guys, welcome back to Ambitious. I am so excited. We were just chatting before we hit record, and I was just saying how much I feel like you're going to be triggered in like the most beautiful way by today's topic. I am so excited to be joined by Alyssa today because we're going to both be diving into all things codependency. So Alyssa, welcome to Ambitious.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I hope it's like the most gentle hug of a trigger for everyone.
Well, I feel like sometimes, at least I can speak for myself. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't need that, or that's not me. And then someone dives into it and I go, oh, okay, never mind. I'm listening. You got me. So I think today's going to be one of those. But if someone's obviously listening, they might have even seen the title and thought to themselves, okay, well, like, I don't know if codependency, this is me. You have like lived and breathed this work deeply and still do every single day. You've got a book, you've got a podcast, you've got programs. Tell us a little bit for someone who's listening. Obviously, you have so much experience in this. First, tell us a little bit if someone's not familiar with you. And then also, like, if they're kind of maybe not totally sold that they might need to listen today, why today, in your experience, is most likely exactly what they need to be listening to.
Okay. So I think the thing that absolutely changed it for me, and I think what also magnetized a lot of people to my work, was me redefining what codependency actually means. Because I think my stigma, I'll speak for myself, was that codependency is when you are struggling in a relationship with someone who has addiction, right? And that has never been the case for me in any of my relationships. So I immediately just was like, that's not me, right? Like, I'm not codependent because I'm not in a relationship with someone who struggles with addiction.
Mm,
And that couldn't be further from the truth. And the way that I define codependency is when you place your worth or your good feelings about yourself on someone or something outside of you. So
mm,
just take a moment to like really let that sink in, because if you think about society, society has literally primed us to be
yeah.
codependent.
Yeah.
Society has primed from education, right? Your grades told you how
Mm,
smart you were. The amount of money in your bank account told you how successful you are. Your job title told you like how prestigious you are, right? Or your accolades, right? We base our worth on those things. We seek them
mm,
out because they then mean something about us. And so we attach our happiness to it, we attach our belonging to it, we attach our good feelings about ourselves to it. And this goes to relationships too, which is, where codependency I think comes up the most. It's our attachments to anything and everything.
mm,
What attachment do we have to this thing? To being a homeowner, to being married, to being a mother? And it's unraveling from those attachments.
mm. I feel like as soon as you said that, my brain was going to family approval and like
Yeah.
relationships with parents. I can see with a partner, your entire identity being wrapped up into a partner. And even for entrepreneurs, I'm thinking clients, client approval,
Mm-hmm.
client satisfaction, client results. Like if the clients are happy,
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy versus just being happy regardless. So, so interesting. Okay. Obviously, you have dove into this for a while now. How did you get into this work? What kind of sparked, going down this journey and diving into codependency?
It's a real dark story, y'all. It was me in the middle of a breakup, actually,
Okay.
with the person who I'm actually currently in a relationship with. So
Okay.
it's a little success story, right?
I love
But
that.
yeah, we were together for 4.5 years and we broke up. And it was one of those, what they call the dark night of the soul, except it was
Mm,
like way more than a night and it lasted what seemed like forever. And it took me being out of that relationship and seeing how he was not in a relationship with me. And it was like night and day. I saw what went from someone who was depressed, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to talk about any, like someone who was very, very much in this like deep dark hole while he
mm,
was in a relationship with me. And then outside the relationship, he's traveling, he's going out, he's hanging out with friends. He's like this bubbly persona. And we were friends before we dated. So we had the same friend group. And even
got
though we
it.
didn't spend a lot of time together, I still saw him
Yeah.
in the general, we're kind of in a small town. So it was easy to run into each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, here
What is
he
going on?
is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he is everything I wanted him to be in the
Yeah.
relationship. But now he is that outside of the relationship. And I mean, I guess just call it, you know, by the hand of the universe. There was a curiosity that was piqued where I asked, could this actually been a me thing?
Mm,
Because I was so convinced it was a him thing. I
mm,
was so convinced our entire relationship, all of the problems were because he didn't show up. He wasn't supporting me.
right.
He wasn't helping with the dishes. He wasn't doing this. He wasn't doing that. He wasn't doing, you know, yoga or meditating like I was.
Mm.
Right. And so I was convinced that he was the problem.
Which I feel like
But
is
yeah.
also very much a narrative too. When
Mhm.
relationships don't work, everyone is the first opportunity to point the finger to it has to be somebody, it can't be me. So I feel like that also says a lot about you to be like, "Okay, mirror back on myself. What's
Mhm.
here?"
Mhm.
Interesting. Okay. And so
Yeah.
obviously you go through this and that kind of led you I love that word of curiosity. I'm obsessed with it.
Mhm.
You got curious about what could be kind of like the underneath of how it evolved.
Yeah, I saw a pattern. I would be in a long relationship with someone, they would lose that spark within them, we would break up, and then I would immediately try to find somebody else to be in a relationship with. And so I
Mm,
was like, okay, well, if I'm the common denominator in this pattern that continues to play out, I get into a relationship with someone who's really bright, really bubbly, really out there. They end up getting really dark. We break up. And I was like, okay, well, what's my role in this? And
mm,
I realized that I never really asked myself that question. And that's where I started seeing codependency. It was honestly a word that just kept popping up around me for whatever reason. I didn't even have social media at the time. Okay. So this was like 2019. I didn't have social media for like three
yeah.
years of my life, and it was great,
Wow.
which is hilarious now because my business is
Yeah,
solely
social
run on
media.
social
But
media.
that's also that holds so much that's so important you say that though, because, like, I feel like when you see things now, like a TikTok algorithm, it just sends it to you, so it's not quite as much a sign as in, like, for example, for you, not being on social and seeing it everywhere, so it must have landed.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I was hearing it, I was seeing it, and I had this journal that I had got at the time, and I wrote on the very, very first page, codependency. And I was like, I don't know what
Mm,
the fuck this word means, but I'm seeing it everywhere.
yeah.
It was literally just a sign. It was just like I had basically a few months prior been like, I'm ready to step into my soul purpose, my
Mm,
soul's mission, what I'm here to do on the earth in this lifetime. And my whole life fell apart,
mm.
and I saw my codependent patterns, and now that's the work that I do. So it was quite literally like a
I
like
was yeah.
push, click
Yeah.
into place, you know?
Yeah, and also, like, I do think that, like, obviously it's that classic quote, "Everything happens for a reason," but obviously it's the work that you do now. So, like, in some
Yeah,
roundabout way, this was also, like, a catalyst for your career in a way, that if it
it
hadn't have
was.
happened, you wouldn't have found it, which means you wouldn't have dove into the work. So it's kind of like you said, it is a beautiful success story at the end of the day, obviously, at the end of the process. We were talking before we hit record, guys, and we were talking a little bit about, the definition of codependency. And I think for me, I'll be honest, I wouldn't say that I'm super educated on it, which is why even for me, like as a fellow listening to you speak today, I'm nerding out because I'm like, okay, I want to learn all of the things. And
Mhm,
you said like putting basically your value in another person, thing, something basically outside of yourself. So if someone is like, okay, like maybe like you, they're like, do I have some traits of this? Do I have some awareness of like, maybe this is me? Are there things that you saw in yourself when you went inward or that you maybe even see in clients that you feel like are kind of indicators, signs, or symptoms of someone who might be kind of experiencing a codependent dynamic?
mhm. Absolutely. I think some key indicators to help show you that you may have some codependency is wherever you are feeling resentful, because that means you are doing something outside of your own intrinsic boundaries and you're overriding them. So, like, resentment is a really good indicator to show where you're struggling with boundaries. And if you're struggling with boundaries, it's usually because you have a story that you tell yourself about why you can't have them.
Mm,
So that's one of my big ones. Another one is intrusive thoughts or negative feedback loops. So this is where you replay like the absolute worst case scenario. It's where you fixate on your partner cheating on you and you can't get over it. And it's just this thought that comes in and in and in. It's usually being triggered because we have a deep seated fear of abandonment, rejection, or betrayal.
mm,
That is the root of codependency. The root of
mm,
codependency is our fear of abandonment, our fear of rejection, and our fear of betrayal. And it ends up being the thing that fuels us to trying to control our external reality, whether that's your business, your clients' journey, your relationship, your friendships, your relationship with your family.
Okay. So I feel like my brain is going in all the ways this could look. For you, let's just say, let's take bucket number one. Maybe
Yeah.
like with family. What might be a
Hmm.
way or a situation that you might think of that maybe someone might see this dynamic happen in like a family dynamic with themselves?
Hmm. Yeah, for me, how it showed up was, like, needing to protect my mom. So
Mm.
I wouldn't say what I was feeling or I wouldn't speak my truth because I had a fear that I was going to upset her, that I was going to hurt her feelings, that she would feel guilt, that she would feel
Yeah.
bad. So in order to protect her from feeling any of those things, I would like shove my truth deep down into the abyss of my soul, right?
Mm.
And the thing is when we talk about our mothers, which is ultimately where a lot of our codependency can come from, is it's the mother wound. It's where we judge, we isolate, we compare ourselves to others. That's how I define the mother wound, which is what my book is. It's healing the
Mm.
mother wound.
Yep.
And I directly correlate the mother wound with codependency. It does not mean that your mother was unloving or unkind, right? Like I have one of the most beautiful relationships with my mom, and I also have this dysfunctional dynamic with her where I overcompensate so that she doesn't have to feel upset.
The thing I so resonate with that, it was actually a piece of feedback that I got from someone this year. And I went through kind of like the ending of a very long term relationship this year. And I had been diving a lot into just like better understanding myself. Like you said, I love where you said, like, it maybe there's a pattern here. Something I always talk about is like, if it's a pattern, it's a problem. And so I'm like, anywhere I see
Yeah.
patterns in my life, I'm like, gotta dive in. There's something happening there. And someone had come to me and they said, what you think is serving someone is actually just self sacrificial.
Mhm.
And like, even like you're saying, of like, I don't want to upset somebody. I don't kind of like want to rock the boat. I'm just trying to keep everything even keel. I have done that in so many dynamics with friends, family, partners, all in this like true, genuine belief that it was like serving them by just
Mhm.
letting me burden whatever the weight was the moment. It could be a decision, it could be anything. And even as you're saying that, I was also, though, secretly a little bit resentful of it. Even though I would do it time and time again, I was still always resentful. And I remember someone saying to me, like, it's not sacrifice, it's self sacrifice. So, like,
Mhm.
you're literally giving up yourself in the pursuit of trying to make somebody else happy. So I very, very much resonate with that. And I also feel like you must see this even there's family, but also in friend dynamics as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and we basically codependency is so sneaky because it's wrapped in this beautiful present like gold wrapping paper with a bow, and we cast it off as nice. I'm
Mm,
being nice, right? But something I say to all my clients is it's not nice if someone else ends up being the villain in your story,
okay.
right? Like if you end up being the victim in some way, right? Like you don't have time now because you said yes to the thing that they asked and now they get to be this perpetrator
Yeah.
basically in a way. That's not nice.
Really, if it means well for someone else, but it takes from you in order to do it, there's something to
Mhm.
dive into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Though and so often what I'll get asked is, "Okay, well how do I know if I'm doing it from like genuine kindness or
Yeah.
if it's me just unconsciously playing out this core wound of wanting to be liked or wanting to be quote unquote nice?"
Mhm.
And the way that I communicate that difference or that discernment is if they didn't praise you, if they didn't validate you, if they didn't acknowledge you, if you got nothing, absolutely nothing, if no one even knew you did it, would you still do it?
Mm. And when you ask that question to people, what do people typically respond with?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. I have responded with, "Yeah, I would still totally do it." And
Okay.
then when they don't acknowledge me, I feel resentful. And then it's just
Mhm.
those moments of reality checking yourself.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that we're wrong or bad because your brain tricked you or your ego tricked you into thinking that it was genuine kindness, but just notice and like we already mentioned, pattern track. That's how you get out of codependent dynamics is you pattern track. Every time you ask yourself that question, but then you feel resentful, you need to track that shit.
Mm.
Every time I say that I'm doing this from a genuinely kind place, I don't need acknowledgement, but then when I don't get acknowledgement, I feel some type of way about it. You need to write that shit down because the only way that we get out of it is by taking accountability and responsibility for ourselves.
Well, I think so many times, at least in my opinion, so many times we say things to ourselves, at least I feel like I've done this, so I'll speak for myself. I think I say things to myself to almost make myself believe it or
Yeah.
make myself tune into the feeling. So, like, to your point, if you do something kind for someone and you're like, "Oh, I don't need acknowledgement. I'm just doing it out of, like, the goodness of my heart," and then they don't acknowledge it and you're kind of resentful, you say it to yourself like, "I don't need acknowledgement." You're trying to, like, program your own mind to
Mhm.
convince yourself that whatever you're thinking is true for you. But
Mhm.
really from what I'm hearing from you is, like, your feeling around a dynamic with someone else is going to be all of the compass that you need to really know whether it's quote unquote "healthy."
1000%. And that thing that you were mentioning, we go in and say, "No, I don't need the acknowledgement," after we already felt that resentment. That is only invalidating this part of you that does hold the core belief that you do need that validation.
Mm. Mm.
And when we don't just acknowledge, I actually wanted acknowledgement
Yeah.
from that. It
Yeah.
actually was important to me to be seen in that. That was actually something that I really desired or needed. When we don't say that to ourselves, what we end up doing is watching it basically get louder and louder in every situation that follows
Mhm.
because it
Mhm.
compounds and then it compounds and then it compounds. And that's why you see these marriages that end or these relationships that end. They've been together for 30 years and they just now realize they were in a codependent dynamic. But when you ask, when was the last time you felt happy or fulfilled in it? They're like, they can't even tell you because it's just been so compounded and they were so attached to it working out that they lost sight of what was really important to them.
Mm. This honestly lands so much because I'm thinking of a bunch of different friends and even peers that have been in situations where they made how they felt kind of wrong and instead
Mhm.
tried to use language to be like, well, like, for example, I know somebody who was in a relationship and they didn't have a lot of physical touch in their relationship. It wasn't like his specific love language. And she had gone to him about it, and then the conversations I saw very quickly transferred to, like, "It's not a big deal, like, I don't really care." And it's really interesting because when people even as a coach, different setting, obviously different topic, but when people vocalize what they don't care about, it's one of the fastest ways to really easily, to your point, distinguish what someone actually does care about because it's usually verbiage they're using to try to convince themselves to get onto the same wavelength. And I love that you said, it's just gonna get louder and louder because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, like it literally in your subconscious to want whatever it is that you're wanting or to want to be validated or to want to be seen. And yet, when you don't do that, it just literally is going to increase it till it completes itself because that's how your brain is designed. So I love that.
Mhm.
I love that. And obviously, the most common that codependency is understood or I feel like studied or discussed is in relationships, like romantic relationships. And so, like,
Mhm.
I'm curious, maybe for yourself or for people you've worked with, what are some situations or things that you usually see of like behaviors that might be
Mhm.
specific to a romantic relationship as it pertains to codependency?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give an analogy actually, because I feel
Yeah.
like this is
We
going
love
this
analogies, so I'm here for it.
yeah, okay, perfect. I just feel like the visual of this, even if you're just picturing it in your mind, can be really helpful because it is so nuanced. It could be anything. It could be like him picking up this tissue off my desk and making mean something, right?
Mm.
Or not. So the way that I describe codependency is you want to imagine a vessel, like an empty vessel in the center of your heart space. Okay. I have a vessel, my partner has a vessel. Imagine like a clear glass. Okay. When we're in a codependent dynamic, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that empty feeling to feel full. And so I want or need my partner to tell me he loves me, to tell me that he's never going to leave me, to, rub my feet, to pick up dinner, to ask what I want for dinner. Like it could be all of these things. Basically, anything that is an external validation, praise, like
Mm.
whatever that is for you. Okay. And so when I ask for it or when I want it or when I guilt him for not doing it, which is usually what we end up doing because we don't feel safe to just ask for what we want, right? A very common codependent thought pattern is, well, I don't want to tell him that I want him to do the
You just want
dishes.
him to know.
I
You
just
just want
want
him to
him to
know.
know. I
Yeah.
just want him to do it.
Yeah.
But really, what you're saying is, I don't think that what I want and need is important, and I don't feel like I can ask for that. And
Mm,
I'm so terrified of rejection, I would prefer not to ask. It's really just putting off responsibility.
mm,
I don't actually want to take responsibility for articulating and communicating what I want and need. I want him to read my mind. But for anyone listening, this is probably going to be the triggering thing. Reading somebody else's mind, and the reason why we do this, I'm totally getting away from the analogy, but this is important. We, if we're in a codependent dynamic and we tend to be codependent, we have learned how to perceive the needs of others. It's like our superpower, or we feel like it's our superpower. I can sense when someone's off and might need a little extra support. I can sense when my partner's in a mood and I know that making this dish is going to like boost his mood or whatever, or like make him feel loved.
mm,
And so, because we have this, it's actually a trauma response. Because we have this trauma response, we want our partners to perceive our needs. But all that's doing is actually creating more dysfunction in our relationship. It's
mm.
actually a good thing that they don't perceive our needs.
And is that
And
because you feel like people who are in codependent dynamics need to kind of practice and, like, flex that muscle of being able to communicate needs?
1000%. 1,000, and so that's why I always say, like, start with, like, the low risk things, it's the things that feel, like, not so scary, like, maybe you
Yeah.
say where you do actually wanna have dinner for the date night, instead of being like,
Mm.
"Well, where do you wanna go?" Just assert, like, "Oh, I actually want pizza tonight,"
Yeah.
whatever feels like a low barrier, low risk barrier. But back to the analogy, so codependency is just I want that validation, I want that praise, I want him to know what I want and do it, and then when it comes in, it fills that vessel, and then we get like all these dopamine hits. So imagine something like coming through and just hitting all these dopamine receptors, and you feel like so
Mm.
good and you feel loved and you feel seen because he did the dishes. We'll use that as an example because that was a
'Kay.
big one in my house. Okay,
'Kay.
he did the dishes, I feel good, I feel seen, I feel loved. But then when I go and open the dishwasher, I'm like, "Oh god, why did he put the bowls in there like that? Like, they're not even gonna get washed when he put like." Then I basically have to go in and, like, redo it.
Mhm.
This is because if I actually allowed myself to be filled, then I wouldn't need him anymore, and that feels scary, and then he wouldn't need me
Mm.
anymore. So now I need to critique it. So the way he said, "I love you," well, you said it in this weird tone. The
Mm.
way he did the dishes, well, you didn't put the dishes in very well. Like,
Yeah.
we're completely insatiable, right? Because it goes right out the bottom of the vessel. So we find a way, we feel good for a second, but then we find a way to critique it, which is that love, that pouring in goes right out the bottom. And then we're stuck
Mm.
needing it again. Well, I need you to say it in this tone. That's why whatever you want from your partner, if it doesn't feel like enough, it doesn't feel like enough, it doesn't feel like enough, you're in a codependent dynamic. And it
I feel
doesn't mean
like
that
this
there's
is
anything.
triggering for me in a
Yeah,
thought. I'm thinking instantly, and I feel like I have had experience with this, but also peers and friends have, where you almost create problems to create an opportunity, to your point, to empty that and fill it, empty that and fill it. Like, I'm
yeah.
thinking I have seen people who, from what I know of their dynamic, were in, like, such healthy relationships, but one person always found a reason to kind of, like, go back to that conversation, to your point. So, with a codependent dynamic, would it be fair to say that sometimes if you kind of crave that dopamine hit that you create them?
Mhm.
Mm,
1000%,
okay.
right? And the thing is that we're doing it unconsciously. Like, we don't
Mhm.
realize that we're doing it,
Right.
right? And that's what I was gonna finish with is, like, it doesn't mean that you're broken, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It's just that this is the pattern that has been normalized for you. It's probably a pattern that you witnessed growing up. It's probably a
Mhm.
pattern that you developed when you're a lot younger than you are now. So just like holding that compassion for yourself, because that's the slippery slope with starting to become more aware of codependency, is that we start basically putting on layers of shame and guilt, which
Mm,
just make us feel even worse about ourselves, which make us more thirsty for that
got it.
validation, right? So we want to be really mindful that there's going to be that part of us that wants to make us feel like absolute shit, but that's just going to perpetuate the patterns tenfold. Like what we need is like compassion and grace. I can see
Mm,
why I created this pattern. This pattern was created in a time that I absolutely needed it and it kept me safe. And that was probably before you even have memories, right?
right.
It probably happened in the first 6 years of your life.
Mm. I feel like
And
this is
so
so layered because I'm thinking, like you've mentioned, there's childhood. I'm also hearing boundaries, probably an
mhm,
aspect of people pleasing. And I'm
yeah.
wondering, even maybe like attachment styles. So, like, if someone
Mhm.
is hearing this and they're thinking, okay, there's definitely an aspect here that I resonate with, whether it is with, a relationship, romantic relationship, a friendship, family, where does it come from? Like, if someone, I'm assuming the first obviously place is acknowledgement, but then it's like, okay, great. How do we get back to the root? Again, back to your example of this probably happened when you were a child or when you were younger or in a situation that you might not correlate directly these two events together.
Mhm.
What are some of those things that someone can dive in to kind of learn about themselves to see, okay, well, this is how codependency is showcasing itself in my life, whether it's, again, value of clients, relationship, family, friends. How do we go back to it to kind of understand its source? Or is that maybe important or not important in your opinion?
Yeah. So this is why I created a framework. The framework that I use with all my clients and myself, like doing this work literally yesterday with myself. It's this combination of shadow work and inner child healing. I don't think that we need to have a specific memory to trace it back to alchemize and tend to this part of us that is maybe stuck in that pattern.
Mm,
What I have noticed in my work with clients is that a memory usually does come forward and they're always surprised. Like if you go to my podcast and listen to any of the sessions, almost every single one ends with, "Whoa, I had no idea that was there. Whoa, I had no idea that that was even like, I would have never attached this, afraid that my partner's gonna cheat on me, to this moment when I was in my
mhm.
grandpa's house and blah, 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 sitting on his couch,
Yeah.
you know? So, what I do is I lead people through shadow work or myself through shadow work questions. And I can usually, like across the board, create a prompt for basically anything. It's if blank happens or doesn't happen, then what is the fear or what is the story that I'm telling about myself? Right? If this relationship doesn't work out, then what am I afraid will happen? I'm afraid that it will mean that I'm going to be alone forever. And if I'm alone forever, then it means that something was wrong with me. If something was wrong with me, then what does that mean? It means that I'm broken. If I'm broken, then what does that mean? That means I'm unlovable. And if I'm
Mm,
unlovable, like it can go on and on. But usually in my work, it comes down to like three of the same core wounds: fear of failure, fear of being alone, and like dying, like death. Like if this happens, I die. Or
mm,
what's the point of living, right? It gets really dark, yes, you could say, but it's like when you can see that, you start having compassion for the part of yourself that's so attached to this relationship working out, right?
right.
Of course, you want this relationship to work out because if it doesn't, it means you're a failure, you're broken, you're unlovable, da da da, all these things. And
Mm,
so from that place, I usually will ask someone who I'm working with or myself, okay, where does that fear live in my body? So we bring in somatic healing,
mm.
somatics. Where does
And
that
just
feeling
even
live
for
in your
anyone
body?
who's listening to this, if they're not familiar with shadow work or somatic practices, just I'm understanding what you're saying, but just for anyone who maybe isn't as exposed to this type of work,
Mhm.
just a quick reference as you're speaking to that for like what that kind
Mhm.
of means or symbolizes.
Yeah, so shadow work is becoming aware of something in your psyche that is unconscious.
Mm.
So I have an attachment to this relationship, but I don't know why I have an attachment to this relationship. So shadow work and the questions that I just asked or the prompt that I just gave helps me see all the attachments. So what's underneath or what's, in the shadows, if you will,
Yeah.
behind this relationship working. So shadow work is okay, let's access parts of our unconscious mind to see all of the burdens and weight that we're placing on this one thing. The promotion, the friend not calling you back, being left on red. The shadow work is, okay, what am I attaching meaning to that underneath the surface? I know I'm triggered by the, being left on red or my friend ghosting me, right? Whatever it is. But can I take that trigger and see why it's triggering in the first place?
Mm. Mhm.
Because all a trigger is a part of ourselves that is ready to be healed, intended to. What I see it as, uh, and I love this reframe around triggers because I think a lot of people are like, I want to do the healing and the inner work so I don't get triggered again,
Yeah.
right? Like, I want a life where I'm not triggered, where I really try to give this other lens where, like, I'm willing to be triggered again
For sure. Yeah.
if it means that I get to see myself more fully and step into a deeper level of wholeness, compassion, unconditional love for myself.
I think triggers are the roadmap to the life that you want. Because if you are
1000%.
somebody who is, for example, to your point, triggered by being ghosted over text message, to live with that forever means you live a very different life than to have that happen. Say, I'm feeling something in my body come up right now, or I'm feeling something in my mind start swirling, or I can't stop thinking about XYZ. Why is this bothering me? And realizing also the web that is connected to that and other things that it's impacting in your life. And
Mhm.
I had someone who shared with me an analogy about triggers, and they were talking about like those usually, I don't know why, it's always like 40-year-old men or 50-year-old men with like that, what is that called? That like metal detector that they go down up and down the beach and they try to find like,
Mm.
jewelry and whatever. And they were saying, like, that's basically how triggers work. Like, they're all hidden and buried in the sand. You never know where they are. You can't quite place them. But it really is like unlocking this like treasure that sits inside of you because once you, to your point, flush through that trigger, you start to understand yourself and identify with parts of yourself that you weren't even aware of until that thing came up. And I was even saying before we press record, like, how indirectly so amazingly beautiful it is even that this stemmed from, again, a quote unquote triggering relationship that might have happened in that moment. And now you guys are happy and you have an incredible brand that talks about this and serves people, right? So, like, there's so much amazing domino that can happen after the trigger itself. So I love that you said that. I so agree.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in that dark night of the soul time period of us not being together, I was triggered every single second of every single day. Like, and it wasn't just in regards to him, it was in regards to every aspect of my life. I
Mhm.
felt this complete dissolving of my ego and like what I was attaching all this meaning to. I was like, I saw clearly for the first time, and that is extremely triggering.
Mm.
But because I didn't know at the time that what I was doing was shadow work. I didn't know at the time that what I
Right.
was doing was inner child healing. So that's why it's
Right.
so kind of wild. Like, you'll always find the medicine that you're looking for no matter what. You cannot miss what is meant for you. And I found this way to hold myself through that time that now we've been together for over 5 years now. And my relationship with him looks nothing like the first half of our relationship. It's the same person, same patterns,
Yeah.
same things, but the way that I relate to him scrolling on TikTok or watching YouTube is so different than how I related to it, back in 2019.
Yeah. And I think that's also an important thing that I feel like what I take from that too is the fact that a dynamic in codependency can shift and evolve. I'm thinking
Yeah.
you could have a relationship with someone where maybe you're like, we don't have any codependent type of signs or symptoms. And I would imagine over time, those could also develop as either of you change and evolve, or vice versa. To
Yeah.
your point, you could start off in realizing and identifying those dynamics and then find over time that they dissipate. So I feel like which is why I was
Mhm.
excited for everyone to listen to this because I think it's really just like this understanding of awareness within yourself, within your dynamic with others that leads you to be able to have a tool or like a framework basically to like evaluate dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, people said, okay, well, how do you have this night and day relationship? Like, what
Yeah.
did that take? And it took, that if I can go back to that analogy, it took me learning how to fill that vessel for myself, right?
Mm.
Without him needing to be someone to pour into it. And I know I get a lot of like pushback because they're like, well, then what's the point of a
That
partner
was my
if
next question. I was like, I can
yep,
see the girl who's listening to
yep,
this being like, "But he completes me." Like, all of
yeah,
that
yeah.
narrative. Yeah,
Let me drop it on you, okay? This is so good because it's so, so, so important. And I get
yeah,
it. And I get it 100%. So when we begin to fill our own vessel, and we can do that through these shadow work prompts, right? Through the shadow work, doing that somatic practice, going into an inner child healing where we can really tend to that part of us, because just like the trigger is that treasure in the sand, that's all this is. It's just finding those keys and bringing them back into your body, and through somatics and through inner child healing. And if I have a free guide too, so I'll maybe send that to you if people
amazing.
are like,
Yep.
what are the steps? Like, it's literally step by step the exact questions to ask. But what happens with that vessel in the beginning is that now we're filling it from the bottom up. So when we got the validation from our partners, it felt good because it's going from the top down and it's hitting all those dopamine receptors. So when you do the self-care thing, let's say you take a bath, you're like, well, I don't feel better because you're starting from the
Yeah,
base,
yeah.
right? I remember the first couple of months where I was like, okay, whatever I poured into him, I'm going to pour into myself. And I sat in that bathtub and I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I don't feel any better. I am like, if anything, I'm
Yeah,
more fucking pissed than I was to
yeah,
begin with.
yeah.
But I didn't stop. And I think doing a challenge, that works really well for me. I don't know if that works well for
Mm,
you, but I was like, I'm going to do this for 30 days where every time I want him to hang out with me, I'm going to hang out with myself. And
I love that.
so I took so many fucking baths, you guys. My hands were basically like always
Raisin.
wrinkly. Yeah, exactly. But you know what happened towards the end of the 30 days? I was like, I had bought some candles. I had bought like some nice like salts and like created a whole mood. I was actually enjoying them, right?
Yeah,
So it was because I wasn't at the bottom of this vessel. I had gotten maybe like a
yeah.
quarter of the way up where I was like, "Oh, I actually feel something shifting." And I kid you fucking not, at one point, guess who walks in through the bathroom door and sits next to me while I'm in the bath? My partner. And you know what? It was the first time that I realized that, like, even though it was only 5 minutes, I actually felt so much connection with him in that moment. And
Mm,
I remember being like, hold on to this, because what's happening is you are filling yourself up, that anything he pours into you is overflow,
yeah.
right? So for those people who are like, well, then what's the point of a relationship? You have a vessel between you and your partner.
Mm,
So when you fill yourself up and they fill themselves up, so if you feel responsible for your partner's mood, that's you filling their cup, and it's not going to actually help them fill it for themselves. They're just
yeah.
going to become dependent on you making them feel better. When you're both responsible for your own cups, when I do something kind for my partner, he's able to receive it. It adds to his overflow and it pours into the vessel between us.
Mm,
When my partner does something nice to me, because it doesn't mean that your partner cannot validate you. It doesn't mean that your partner cannot do something nice for you. They're going to. They're going to tell you you look pretty today. They're going to tell you that they love you out of nowhere. They're going to like have those little moments. But when I'm not in a as codependent dynamic, I can actually receive it and not critique it. Where when I'm
mm,
in a codependent dynamic, I usually receive it, but then shortly after, I'm like thirsty for more.
mm. I so resonate with that because I remember that I would definitely say I'm like a relationship girl in the sense of like I've never been like, and nothing wrong with it, but I've never been the casual dater. Like dating to me is like just not something I get excited about. I don't know if any girls do, but for
Yeah.
me it doesn't excite me like massively. And so I remember that I had always kind of had a partner. I'd always been in some kind of dynamic. And I didn't realize until actually, like, frankly, in the last like 2 years, that I was always around people. Like, I was always, to your point, getting that dopamine hit of being distracted and not really ever having to sit with myself. And so I remember when I moved out this year, which was really the first like long extended period where I had just left a relationship of 8 years and I was my first time alone. And I'm like, okay, like this is really weird. I had to your point, the amount of times I was in my bathtub, not even okay, like 3 times a day because I was like,
Mhm.
okay, center yourself, center yourself. And it's weird because so many people were so excited for me. They were like, you're gonna have your own space. This is gonna be amazing. You're gonna be on your own. And I felt none of that. Like, I was not excited. I did not wanna be by myself. All I wanted to do was laugh with him again, joke with him again, be around somebody, like, somebody just distract me. And I realized that it really came down to the fact I was not comfortable being by myself because
Mhm.
I used friends, work, him, like something else always like fill me up, distract me because only like my joy and my like excitement was around being around other people. And so when you
Yeah.
took all of it away, it was terrifying. You feel so exposed because you realize, and even for me at least, I had this inner thing of like, who the hell am I? Because I realized
Mhm.
that without these people or things or jobs or distractions, frankly, I didn't even know what to do with myself. So I'm curious, like for somebody maybe who feels like they lose themselves in their friends, they lose themselves in work, maybe like in family, in their partner, how did you get to that place of, like, really enjoying and getting back to yourself? When as I'm sure, like, similar to your situation, it probably was pretty, like, jarring at first, I would imagine.
Mhm. Absolutely, and I'm not, like, there yet. Like, I'm not even I wanna, like, name that too because I think a common misconception is like, "Oh, you heal codependency and you don't experience
Yeah,
this." I'm still
yeah,
experiencing this. If I'm
yeah,
dysregulated, I am codependent as fuck to something. Like, I'm grasping, right?
yeah.
And so I wanna name that, like, what's gonna work in this season of your life might hold you through this season, but that might change next season. Like, when I first became aware of this, it was Baz for me. Like, I tend to get overwhelmed with decisions that I will just, like, not make any. So, what I would recommend for people who are wanting to kinda start maybe doing that inner tending to and learning how to fill that vessel is pick 2 things. Pick 2 things that are relatively free or inexpensive that don't, like, cost you anything but maybe your time, and
Mhm,
try to have those things touch on as many sensorial experiences as possible.
mm,
So, my 2 things were taking a bath and making myself cacao. So, you have the physical act of drawing yourself a bath, right? You need to turn on the water and you need to, light candles, which would be pulling on your smells, right? Having something that you're smelling. Maybe it's essential oils that you're putting into the bath. And then, like, aesthetically make it pleasing to the eye. So, just like you're physically feeling the water on your skin, the warmth of the temperature, right?
mm.
With cacao, which I ended up switching to tea because cacao can actually be quite expensive if you've got a problem.
Yeah,
So, but like the act of like making a nourishing tea. So you have like the act of boiling the water and then getting
mm.
the tea bag, and there's the smells in the tea bag, and you're tasting it, right? So, those I think are really important things to kind of play with. Like maybe it doesn't hit on every single one, but the more I think the better because what you're doing is you're carving out this time to really bring presence to what is happening right now in this moment.
It's almost like a as I'm listening to this, it's almost like a dopamine detox in a way, is
Yes.
kind of what I'm getting from
Yes.
this. Because I'm
Yes.
thinking, like, would it be fair to say that really, like, being codependent is being dependent on dopamine from a source outside of yourself?
Yeah, totally.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as
I
soon
think
as
that's
you're
another
saying,
beautiful
like,
way to put it.
calm bath, candles, and I'm thinking for most women who I know are listening to this, like, go, 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 one thing after another, and it's like chop, chop,
Mhm.
chop, move, 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 that you probably haven't had a moment where you haven't had that massive dopamine spike. So the idea to your analogy of starting from the bottom and building toward it and being okay in that middle space and progress would feel very uncomfortable. So I love the
Mhm.
idea of getting back into yourself. So you're less about like this like kind of constant dopamine hit and more in the actual process and enjoying it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's exactly why, as a business owner, right, and someone who makes content, and I have tons of pieces of content that go viral and reach the millions. So there's a lot of dopamine coming in all the
Yep.
time. I'm on do not disturb all of the time. I don't get any notifications, and it's best
Same.
that way.
Same, yeah.
And because I think I'm that go, go, go person too, I'm a manifesting generator. An idea comes in and I'm going to create all the things like in the next 30 minutes,
Yeah.
but to my demise in a lot of ways because I'm distracting myself from
Mm.
being. And so in this season of my life, I'm actually creating more boundaries around my business because that's the thing I started distracting myself with. Before it was with
Mm.
my friends, right? Before the pandemic, it was gatherings with my friends, dinner parties, going out, all of those things. And then I learned, in the pandemic, how to be alone. I learned in my breakup, which is around the same time, how to be alone, how to actually spend time with myself. But then
Mm.
I've noticed where I can easily distract myself and fill that void with business. And so
Mm.
it's this unraveling again of I am locked out of my phone from 11 to 1
Mm.
and I make myself go for a walk. I either go for a walk or I go for a run. I'm making sourdough bread, like whatever I need to do, right? It's like
Yeah.
pushing
Yeah.
myself in this season of my life. What is something that I can pour into?
Yeah.
Because baths don't do it for me right now,
Not to
right?
mention
Like,
your water bill would be
I know.
insane. Yeah. Well,
I
obviously
know.
you mentioned business, and obviously so many of the women who listen to this are business owners. And so I can imagine that there's people who might say, well, I don't feel like I see this in my relationship, or maybe I don't see this with my friends. You obviously work with business owners, you are a business owner. How do you see this impacting things like business or business relationships?
Oh my gosh, if I can think back to my first like year or 2 years in my business, I had created such a codependent dynamic with my business because I was constantly, and it's kind of what they teach you in all the business classes and masterminds and all this. It's like
Yeah.
I know they don't use this language anymore, but like find your ideal client, find your avatar. Like what are they doing? What are they
Mm.
experiencing? That is literally getting you out of your house and into somebody else's,
Yeah.
and you're like, what do they want? What do they need?
Mm.
And that's none of your business. And when you do that, you lose sight of the magic of whatever it is that you're offering because you're constantly trying to think, what does my audience want to hear? What does my audience want to
Mm.
see? What kind of program do they want? It is
Right.
not sustainable. Like from my experience, that's just not sustainable. It was when I was like, I'm putting this shit down and I am just going to create content for me,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for a previous version of me, right?
Right.
What does Alyssa 5 years ago, like what did she need to hear? What did she
Mm.
need to know that I know now? And so every piece of content that you see from me, every offer, I create for myself. The Codependency Alchemy membership is for me because I want a space to be held accountable,
Mm.
right? My Codependency Alchemy mastermind is for me because I need a space to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And
I think
when you're
that's
creating,
huge.
totally, the
Huge.
podcast for me so that I can be held accountable, right?
I
Like
love it.
all of these offers
Yeah.
are for me and for previous versions of me that didn't know what I know now. And I think when you come into your business from that place,
Mm.
you have an unlimited well of content.
Yeah.
Really good fucking content too. Relatable content. When I was like, what do they want to hear? I can't possibly know. And I'm going to drive myself
It's a
crazy trying
constant
to figure it
battle.
out.
It's a constant battle. And I think,
Yeah.
the thing that I've found even in business, because obviously there's so many ways to succeed in business, the codependent way that I found people are kind of to your point of the traits earlier that I see this is I do definitely see it in content. So I see it in a way that people are so to your point, what do they want? I don't exist. And I think that obviously the basis, yes, of business is solve a problem that people need solved. However, I think that, like, especially today with personal brands, part of the way in which you do it, which is innately in you, is
Mhm.
part of the reason that it's successful. So like even for
Yeah.
you, obviously, with having a big following and having, a business, a lot of that is because you trusted your gut on what to post and what to say and what to create, and it's landed with people, right? So to your
Mhm.
point, you're in tune with them, but you're not only there to serve them. And I think that that's a big differentiator. And I see that also, most importantly for me, I see it when it comes to delivery. Like I've seen people who've had clients that the client messages and they're there within 5 seconds answering them because they can't let them sit for 20 seconds on their own. Like they can't, the idea of
Mhm.
having the client self-soothe makes them so uncomfortable that, again, to your point of really the avoidance of pain, they're like, but what if I don't answer and they quit the program? And what if I don't answer and then this happens to them? Or what if I don't get back to them and then this occurs? And all these hypothetical situations, like you mentioned earlier, and your mind spiraling as to what could occur is what happens in a moment, in a second, and then you go and you quickly answer it. And the thing that I would love if you could give me your thoughts on, because I feel like I see this with people, again, in content or in coaching, is I find the more you do it, the more it's ultimately ingraining the dynamic further and further, deeper and deeper. Like I'm thinking if you
Mhm.
have clients that you're codependent with, and you might be like, well, I'm not codependent with my clients, but yet you answer them in 5 seconds, or like if they call, you're running. If
Mhm.
that is happening and someone's constantly answering it, and again, this cloak of, but I love my clients and I over deliver and I really care and all these things, with codependency, does this get ingrained deeper and deeper? Like, is someone not acknowledging this and continuing the behavior potentially a reason that the codependency will go deeper and like more ingrained than it even might be today?
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. And also, you have to realize that the transformation that you're holding for your client, you're actually taking away from them because
Mhm.
they're dependent on you fixing it for them or holding them or like you said soothing with
Mhm.
them,
Mhm.
right? This is where I think my coaching containers are so different, or at least what I've heard from clients who have worked with other coaches is that I don't fix anything for anyone. Like, I don't at all, like, not even close. And, some of my clients are like, "I hate that you don't fix it for me." And but that's my
Mm.
work, is to not fix it for you.
Right.
I always say trust in their resilience. Trust in
Mm.
their resilience to move through it. That is actually going to provide them more of the transformation than you coming in and solving it for them.
Yeah, my whole thing I always say is teach people how to think, don't teach them what to do. And I think
Yeah.
that the idea of like I'm sure you share like your perspective of like how you perceive the situation and what you
Mhm.
might do in the sense of like how you look at it or how you assess it. But even for me, one of the biggest things people are like, just tell me what, like, tell me the thing to do. Tell me the action to take.
Mhm.
Tell me the thing to say. Tell me this. And,
Mhm.
even for me, to your point early in my business, was always someone to be known for like done for you resources. So I'm like, okay, like I'll
Yeah.
make you a template for that email. I'll make you a template for that launch. And what actually ended up happening is I created this culture and this base of clients who didn't want to have to think, who were just like,
Mhm.
great, like we go to Kate, she gives us our little dopamine hit, we go back into the business, we need more, we go
Mhm.
and get it from her. And it was literally thinking about like a hamster in a cage just going back and drinking water over and over and over. You
Yeah.
get what you need, you go. You get what you need, you go. And it goes back to your analogy. Like I thought I was helping them. I genuinely was like, this is so good, best program on the market, thought it was the best. And while in a way they thought it was good, right? To your point, you might think that a dynamic with someone is quote unquote healthy, maybe like to your example of your mom, of like, I'm doing this because I care for her, in turn could be in other ways actually not helping her because you're not saying how you feel, or with these
Mhm.
clients because you're not allowing them to experience a moment of discomfort or resilience, to your point. And because they're
Mhm.
not getting that, they're not actually getting to tap into like what they have inside of them.
1000%. And, like, my curiosity around the dynamic of your clients coming in, you doing it for them and giving like, could you do that for the next 10 years? Like, was that sustainable?
If I self-sacrificed.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Like, it was like, and what I found was it trained people. Like, I got to a
Yeah.
place where I had so many done for you templates and so many done for you this, that, and the other. And someone will be like, hey, do you have a training on this? Do you have a template on this? And I'm like, no, but I can make one. Boom, dopamine hit. And they're like, amazing, sounds good. And then,
Mhm.
which is different than a one-to-one dynamic. When you have it in a group dynamic, you're training everyone in your codependent
Mhm.
dynamic at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was really actually not until a mentor had said it to me saying, listen, I know you think these resources are helping people. It's literally handicapping them. And if you don't change it, you're literally going to leave them worse off long term. Maybe in the moment they're going to have this dopamine hit, but like you were noting, like when I was alone, or like what I was saying, when I was alone, long term, I didn't even realize it until I stopped. Like, I didn't, to your
Mhm.
point, till you took a break. Like, I didn't realize until I stopped creating them that I actually felt uncomfortable to not create them for the clients. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna dive into why I feel this way because this is not good. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that reflection for any business owners who are like, okay, I want to see if maybe I have codependency in my business or in my relationships with my clients. Ask yourself, if you didn't do whatever it is that you're doing, that maybe you're feeling a little exhausted by, even that would be a good indicator or a good place to start. And then asking, what am I afraid will happen if I don't provide that?
Mm.
You know, oh, my
Hmm.
business will fail. I've had to do this with my membership so many times. I thought I needed to have this, and I had to have master classes, and I needed to have this type of content. I had to have meditations, and if I didn't have this, then no one would join the membership. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, well, here I am, like creating this expectation
Yeah.
from people that I need to overproduce all these things so that they stay. And so now it's just like I take a step back, I take a step back
Mm.
further and further away. And now it's like sometimes I do want to do a master class, or sometimes I do want to create a template, or sometimes I do want to create a workbook, but doing it from a place of inspiration just because maybe the question came in a whole bunch and I'm like, oh, this would be a great workbook, instead of like, if I don't create this workbook,
They're gonna
they'll
leave. Yeah.
leave. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay, so obviously that business wise so lands. I'm like already having all the downloads and connecting all the dots of people I know. But we've got obviously business clarity. We talked about the romantic relationship side of it with friendships. Someone's like, okay, you've got my attention. This is definitely things that I'm seeing I have a pattern in. Where does someone start to overcome this? Like, obviously, there's an aspect, like you mentioned before, of getting an understanding. But I'm
Mhm.
wondering, getting an understanding and of where it comes from and the self-care, but I'm thinking in practice, i.e.,
Mhm.
I'm thinking, for you, I'm sure when you guys started to get back connected again, you kind of were faced with like the quote unquote trigger, or you get put back in the same environment that created the thing in the first place. So I'm thinking for someone, if that thing is their mom, or if that thing is a friend that they always find they're resentful with, even though they say, yeah, sure, I'll do it, or the clients, when you kind of get back in the environment and you're like, I've done the bath, I did the candles and tea, I understand it's probably something to do with this point in my life. I went back and tried to connect the dots. But when I'm in that trigger, when I'm in that environment, I feel like I kind of go back to old ways. Did you find that? Or is there something that, people could do maybe in those situations that you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. When we got back together, it was so bad. Like
Okay.
there was nothing good about it. It was so bad, so bad. But we both agreed that we wanted to make it work, right?
Mhm.
Which helped, right? What I would tell anyone who is wanting to better hold themselves in those moments that they are triggered is to do two things. And they're both regarding pattern tracking. What are the thoughts that continuously come up when you're triggered? For me, I'll tell you mine. Whenever I defend myself or feel like I need to defend myself, that is an indicator that I need to pause and that a part of me is at the surface that I need to tend to. So, needing to defend myself or feeling resentful, like I had named earlier, those tend to be very common indicators for we are dysregulated. We need to take a pause and we need to go and regulate ourselves,
Mm.
basically. So I have a script basically that I lean on when those mental triggers come up whenever I feel like I need to defend myself or I'm starting to feel resentful and saying like he's this or he's that or whatever story I'm saying. And those mental triggers, I go into, hey, I need to table this. Hey, can we table this conversation? I'm noticing I'm feeling the need to defend myself, and I hold that boundary.
Mm.
That's like really going to be the work in helping you move through these in real time is you're going to need to have boundaries. And the only way that you're going to know where you need to have boundaries is if you know when the boundary is needed. So I
Mm.
know the boundary is needed when I'm feeling like I need to defend myself and I'm feeling resentful. If I'm feeling resentful, I need to stop doing what I'm doing and I need to communicate to my mom or to my partner, hey, I know I said yes, but I'm also feeling like I'm a little bit resentful. So I'm going to actually have to say no.
Mm. It's like tuning in to the feeling that comes up with the trigger and then using
Mhm.
that as your indicator moving forward, even though the situation may change, the feeling remains the same. And then I love
Yes.
the idea to your point of tabling it. One of the quotes that I started to kind of like live by this year that I definitely did not. I feel like I've been working on boundary work with my therapist for like God knows how many years. I'm
It's
32
a
and I feel like
lifetime thing. It's a
I'm
lifetime thing.
32 and I've been working on this since 18. Like, come on. It's a constant practice. But one of the things that I feel like I've been living by, because I didn't, to your point, I always was very self sacrificial. If I didn't want to go somewhere, I'd never say that. I'd say, of course, absolutely, I'll go. And then I would be resentful. Or if
Mhm.
someone asked me to do something or support them in some way, I would always just say yes and basically give myself. And then that would be that. And I would just kind of ruminate inside, and I would always feel this urge to be like, "No, no, 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 no," inside, but then I would say yes. So, I would feel this kind of, like, loud noise, I guess I would say, because my brain would go a million miles a minute. And someone said to me, "Well, what if you just, like, actually said what you feel?" And I was like, "No, no. I can't do that. It's too scary." But when I started to try to flex that muscle, and it was very uncomfortable, to be honest, to your point of tabling it, there was all these ideas of what would happen if I tabled it. So, like,
Yep.
would I not be this person not be my friend? Would this person not wanna be with me anymore? Whatever it might be in the situation, fire me if they're a client. And someone said, "Why don't you live by the motto of if you think it, feel it, say it?" And I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay." So now I will say, like, that motto of if you think it, feel it, say it has been such a, like, game changer because it basically that paired with Mel Robbins' 3, 2, 1, go has
Mhm.
been in those moments where I feel like I have so much noise inside of me, I'm like, "Okay, this is the moment." I'm like, 3, 2, 1, go. Think or feel it, say it. And I just go. And I say whatever I need to say. Like the depth that it has created with relationships that I have now, because the person's like, "Thank you so much for being so transparent." Because honestly, I really needed to hear that. And thinking
Mhm.
about the depth, as I'm even sure with you guys, that you have in your relationship now by tabling things versus before it kind of being inside of you is such a different level of connection, not only with yourself, but also with another person.
Mhm. Yeah, to really pull forward what you're saying here too and like amplifying it, it bridges intimacy. It
Yeah.
brings deeper levels of intimacy, which ironically is what we all want when we say yes, when we
Yeah.
mean no,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
that is why I love reality checking the part of us that feels like we have to say yes. Just asking ourselves, what do you think saying yes is going to provide you with? Well,
Mm,
connection, I'll be a good friend, they'll like me or they won't fire me. How do you feel when you say yes? I
mm,
feel like I feel alone, I feel misunderstood, I feel overwhelmed, I feel anxious. So is it actually providing you with the feeling that you think it is? And most of
mm.
the time when we're overriding our intuition and what is really true for us, it's never giving us what we think
Yeah.
we think it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I think that that's just so important to note that additionally from the mental indicators of, resentment or defending myself, it's the somatic indicators. And I think this was the most helpful for me in communicating in the beginning because saying like I'm feeling resentful can actually be really triggering to the
Someone
other
else.
person.
Yeah.
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 So with my family, especially, I have generations of women still alive in my family. I'm so lucky. Like my great grandma is still alive,
Wow.
93. My grandma is still alive. their reality of my life is very different than my reality of my life, right?
Right.
And so I've noticed that it's been really hard to articulate boundaries with them, but using somatic descriptions of what I'm feeling has helped me kind of work that muscle where I'm afraid to enforce a boundary with them. So just saying, I'm noticing that I'll tell you guys my somatic indicators. My ears get hot, I lose
Okay.
feeling in my fingertips, and I start getting shallow breathing, or my heart starts beating like really fast. That's when I'm triggered. That's what my body
Mm.
does. And so what I would say to them is, I hear you want to have a conversation about, 1993 when this happened. I'm noticing that my ears are getting really hot and I'm losing feeling in my fingertips, which tells me that I'm feeling dysregulated. So I need to table this conversation for right now. Can we talk about dinner on Thursday?
Mhm.
So that's how we enforce the boundary. And I think that that's where boundary work has totally like got misguided because we think boundaries actually have to do with somebody else doing or not doing what we want them to do, but they
Yeah.
have nothing to do with other people and everything to do with us.
Yeah.
And you've been working on boundaries since you're 18 because boundaries are fluid. So, what was a boundary for you a year ago is
Yeah.
not a boundary today,
Well, to be
right?
fair, they also have moved from different people in my life. Like, they're, like, different situations
Yes.
and different dynamics. So to
Yeah.
your point with your family, when you have a dynamic, for example, say with your mom, it's different than the way I have a dynamic or, like, the issue of boundary with this person versus a partner. And so I feel like the reps of it all have also been interesting because to your point,
Yeah.
even there was the integration of it in a moment and putting in those reps when they came up, but also realizing where they came from has been a lot of the work. Because
Mhm.
even to your point of, say, like finding fulfillment in something else, there was an aspect that I realized of like finding fulfillment in other things or other people was because I wasn't fulfilled in myself, i.e., me
Yeah.
alone, without all of those things, without the accolades,
Mhm.
without the circle of friends, whatever it might be. And then also there was this aspect, like for me, I come from a divorced family and it was a pretty messy divorce. And so my mom was a single mom of four. And so I had dynamics of just wanting to make sure she's okay, whatever she needs, if she
Yep.
needs it, if she needs it. And so I was like, she's good, she's good, she's good. And I never really got out of that since I was like 12. So I was like, okay,
Mhm.
great, 12. Now I'm 32. This is just what we do. And then you start to realize, wait a second, like she's an adult, I'm an adult. So you're trying to figure out what this dynamic is, but it was never something that which is why I think therapy and all of this work is so important because
Mhm.
it wasn't something that was like this massive issue in my life. It was just our dynamic. You just label it as like,
Mhm.
this is just how we vibe and how we work together, right? Or even with a partner, I had a partner that I definitely can see some of these dynamics with and some of the traits that you mentioned. And like I think so many times we just label it as like, well, this is just how we are, or like this is like
Yeah.
our situation, right? Our roles. But I think like the big thing that I'm taking from everything you've said today is like while it is maybe the way that you guys have been, or maybe the way that you are, you with your clients, you your friends, you your partner, is it how you want it to be? I.e., like,
Mhm.
do you want to feel this way? Do you want to have lack of boundaries? Do you want to not feel alone? And it was actually truthfully like when you were saying like being alone in the bath, you guys know from my other episodes how much I talk about my bath. So it's so funny you said that. But it was when I was on my own that I actually started to really realize the significance of this work because I started to see I thought forward facing in my life. What if I was to get divorced? What if I was to end up alone with kids like, happened in my family? And I thought to myself, I'm not even comfortable by myself right now. And I don't have a husband and children and all these things. So if I don't fix this root of me in this current stage of my life, this is just going to deeper integrate with my kids become the thing that completes me. My partner becomes the thing that completes me. So I feel like I don't know if you did this when you guys took space, but like I feel like I went in the opposite direction in a dramatic way. Like I was like, I don't want
Mhm.
anyone around me. I want to go inward. I want to like read and journal and Bible and all of the things to like better understand myself. Because I was like, if I don't, I'm just going to go seek something else to try to basically, to your point, hit that dopamine receptor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I would have done that. No, absolutely did not want to be by myself, and I found the first person that would take me, and I was like,
Mm.
"You over there, I need you, you need me," and I like attached and clung. So I like went
Yeah.
on like a really, really that's what illuminated all my codependency. Like it was a toxic situationship where
Mm.
I'm anxiously attached and he was avoidant, and it was just like
Mm.
absolute dumpster fire. But thank God, like I'm so grateful. I would do it 1,000
Yeah.
times over because you could not ignore my dysfunction. like
Mm.
like I had a complete malfunction of being that was impossible not to look at.
Yeah.
But to your point, like, thank God, because this is what cycle breakers do, right?
Yeah.
We were able to see, whoa, I could have like just kept going with it, right? And not acknowledged it and not looked at it and not be like, what is going on here? Let
Mhm.
me tend to this. But you and I both were like, this carries on
Oh, yeah.
to whoever comes after me, whether
Yeah.
or whoever I'm in a relationship with next.
Yeah.
So, do I want to continue this pattern or do I want to do something different?
Which I wanna go back
And
to something you said at the beginning, because I think that's what makes it so significant, is that you
mhm,
found it in yourself and stopped blaming other people.
yeah.
And I think that that's, like, the root of all of it today, and I'm a big fan of it in every department of life, like, just take radical ownership because it's the only way to really solve anything. But I think
Oh, so true.
only if you actually, like, even again, kind of why I wanted to preface today, because if you're this way through the episode and you're like, okay, now I get it with the codependency. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because I think sometimes we see these like labels, right? We see like labels of anything, of being anxious or this, that, or the other. And you think that's not me. But when you get into the traits, to your point of triggers earlier, you start to understand yourself. And when you understand yourself, you see not only the impact of you today, but the impact of like, if I don't fix this, if I don't have an awareness or even a practice around this integrates into all future parts of my life. And so I think like even for you, like you're saying, like I still deal with it every day. Also, same.
Mhm,
I still deal with this every day. But I think the difference of you having an education around it and also having an awareness of it changes the way you live with it, because you
mhm,
now have tools in this toolbox to basically navigate what it looks like in your life versus what it might if you didn't have that information. So, all
mhm.
of what you shared today, it was a masterclass. So, it was so good. It was so good. Okay, if someone's listening to this, and we do this to end every single episode, there's someone listening to this, if you have any words of wisdom for them or any kind of advice, it can be in business, it can be in life, it can be as it pertains to codependency, but the woman who's listening to this is extremely driven, going for massive things in her life, relationships, health, all the things. As obviously fellow business owner yourself and obviously someone who's a master in this work, is there anything that you might recommend as like a nugget of advice that maybe has been impactful for you that
Mm.
you want to share with her?
Whatever you don't look at, whatever remains unconscious will silently run your life.
Mm,
So, stay curious. Stay willing to see the scary, messy part and stay compassionate and hold yourself in grace. Like curiosity, grace, and compassion will literally dissolve any scary, unconscious patterns and behaviors.
I love it. I love it. A great
Mhm.
quote that I heard from a mentor was, "Whatever you resist persists."
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like,
exactly.
"Mhm, mhm. I
Mhm.
love it." All right. All right, girl. If somebody wants to connect with you, social, all of the things, tell us the best place for someone to reach out to you if they kinda wanna learn more a little bit about your work and just, like, listening to, like, 10x more of everything that you touched on today.
Yeah, it would be an honor to just touch base with anyone who comes across this podcast episode. Please slide into my DMs. I respond personally to all of them. I love connecting with people. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm on all the things. My username is my first name, Alyssa, my last name, Zander, with two A's in the middle. And yeah, I have a Substack podcast membership all under Codependency Alchemy. It's like a top 100 relationship podcast, which has been great. It's
So
so
good.
neat. We have a membership of over 250 women and men
Wow.
actually who are all doing this work together. Like there is nothing like coming into a community with like-minded people being like, "Okay, I'm willing to look at my shit."
Yep.
And we have a chat which is just like it's where the magic happens. People just are like, "Does anyone else struggle with this?" And everyone's like, "Wait."
Yep.
Yes. And
Yeah.
in that, you feel compassion, right?
Yeah.
And you have compassion for another person. And so then that compassion just naturally extends to you. And I think that's how we heal codependency is by not silently suffering in our patterns and holding that really heavy shame and guilt that can
Yeah.
sit over the top of it.
Yeah. So good. Alrighty, you guys, you know where to find her. So highly recommend go reach out to her and go connect with her in the DMs. As always, DMs always open. If there's something that even like landed, I feel like Alyssa would probably love to just even hear something that landed. Maybe there's a nugget of something that she said, part of the framework that she talked about, or maybe an analogy that she gave that really landed for you. I feel like for me, obviously for yourself, even having a podcast, we talk into a void. We never really get to see the other side of the conversation.
Mhm.
And so I always recommend you guys to reach out to her, reach out to me. The thing that I know from my entire journey, both personal development and business wise, is to have a transformation really at the deepest level is to be witnessed in it. And so even to your point of the membership, whether it's through reaching out to one of us and having a one-to-one witnessing with us, it really just helps to really solidify that depth on a whole other level. So highly recommend that, you guys. And obviously we will see you next week. And as always, stay ambitious.